If you're under 30 right now, there's something most people never realize until it's already too late. Your 20s come with a financial advantage that disappears faster than you think. Once that window closes, creating wealth doesn't become impossible, but it does become dramatically harder. The reason so many people miss this opportunity isn't because they're lazy or bad with money. It's because nobody explains how powerful this decade really is. We're talking about the most important years for building long-term wealth. And the choices you make before turning 30 could decide whether money becomes a tool that creates freedom or a problem you fight for decades. Here's something wild to think about. Two people can hit age 30 earning the exact same salary, same profession, same city, same lifestyle from the outside. Yet one person eventually retires wealthy while the other spends their entire life chasing financial stability. That gap isn't created by luck. It's not because one person inherited money. And it's definitely not because they discovered some magical investment secret nobody else knows. The difference comes down to a handful of choices made early, decisions that seem small in the moment but quietly shape everything later. My name is Della, and I spend way too much time researching why some people with average incomes build real wealth, while others earning the same amount stay stuck financially year after year. So if you're in your 20s, or just entered your early 30s, and want to understand what actually separates people who gain financial freedom from people who stay trapped working forever, hit subscribe and drop a like if this helps. Because here's what almost nobody tells you about your 20s. Every financial move you make during this decade gets amplified by time. And the multiplication effect is honestly difficult to understand until you see it play out. Money invested at age 25 can end up being worth around 7 times more by retirement than money invested at 35. Read that again. 7 times more. And that's only a 10-year difference. The reason isn't magic. It's compound growth. Time gives your money more opportunities to create more money. Which means two people earning identical incomes can end up living in completely different financial realities simply because of what they did before turning 30. Let me show you exactly what this looks like. Meet Emma and Watson. Both are 30 years old. Both earn around $65,000 annually. Both work similar jobs. Both live in the same city with roughly the same cost of living. From the outside, you'd assume they're in almost identical situations. But financially, their worlds are completely different. Emma's net worth sits around $20,000. She still carries roughly $35,000 in student loans. About $10,000 sits on credit cards. And she has around $5,000 saved. Watson's situation looks completely different. His net worth is approximately $180,000. He has around $100,000 invested in retirement accounts. Another $60,000 sitting in investments. Around $30,000 set aside for emergencies. And only about $10,000 in debt that he's intentionally paying down. Same age. Same salary. Same city. Yet one person constantly worries about money and feels trapped financially. The other is building enough momentum to potentially retire decades earlier while having choices most people never get. So what created such a massive difference? 5 decisions. That's it. 5 choices Watson made throughout his 20s that Emma didn't. And here's the part people usually get wrong. None of those choices required Watson to make more money. He didn't come from wealth. He didn't get lucky with crypto. He didn't have secret connections. Everything he did was available to Emma too. But they made different decisions. And small choices repeated for years eventually become massive financial gaps. So let's start with decision number 1. The thing that quietly determines whether your first paycheck becomes the beginning of wealth, or the beginning of lifestyle inflation. Decision number 1 comes down to something almost everyone gets wrong after landing their first real paycheck. What do you do when you finally start earning actual money? When Emma graduated and got her first full-time job at 23 earning around $45,000 a year, it felt like everything had changed overnight. For years she had lived the typical broke student lifestyle. Cheap food. Constant budgeting. Stress over small purchases. So when that first consistent paycheck started hitting her account, her mindset changed immediately. She told herself she had earned the right to finally enjoy life. So she upgraded. Instead of sharing rent with roommates, she rented her own place because, in her mind, successful adults lived alone. She replaced her old college car with something newer because she wanted reliability and honestly felt embarrassed driving an older vehicle. Cooking after work felt exhausting, so eating out became normal. Coffee runs became daily. Subscriptions started stacking up. Little upgrades slowly became permanent expenses. Within months, something happened without her noticing. Her income increased, but so did her spending. And eventually, almost every dollar she earned already had somewhere to go. Watson graduated around the same time. Similar age, similar income. His first job paid roughly $43,000 annually. But he approached things differently. Even after getting hired, he continued living almost exactly like he had during college. He moved into an apartment with multiple roommates. Kept driving the same fully paid-off car. Meal prepped during weekends. Packed lunches. Avoided expensive upgrades. People around him thought he was being overly cautious. Some thought he looked cheap. But Watson understood something Emma didn't. The goal wasn't to look successful immediately. The goal was creating distance between income and expenses. Because that gap becomes wealth. Every dollar Watson didn't spend automatically moved somewhere productive. Investments. Savings. Debt payments. Assets. Before lifestyle inflation could absorb the money, he redirected it. And that single habit changed everything. This is the first major decision that separates people financially by age 30. Do you increase your lifestyle every time income rises? Or do you increase your investments? Emma believed earning more money meant upgrading life immediately. Watson believed earning more money meant buying future freedom. By age 30, that one difference had already created roughly a $60,000 gap between them. Emma spent that money on experiences, rent, car costs, convenience purchases, and lifestyle upgrades she barely remembers. Watson turned those same dollars into assets that now work for him every day. Now let's talk about the second decision. Debt. More specifically, how you treat student loans. Both Emma and Watson graduated carrying almost identical debt loads. Around $35,000 each. Both had standard repayment plans. Both had manageable monthly payments. But they saw those loans completely differently. Emma looked at her required payment, around $350 every month, and thought, okay, this is manageable. As long as she made the minimum payment, everything felt under control. So every month she paid exactly what was required. Nothing more. Nothing less. And because the payments felt affordable, she focused the rest of her money on enjoying life. Trips. Restaurants. Shopping. Entertainment. She wasn't irresponsible. She simply believed there was no rush. Watson viewed the same debt differently. To him, debt represented something dangerous. Not because the payment itself was overwhelming. Because debt works against compounding. While investments earn interest for you, debt charges interest against you. One builds wealth, the other quietly slows it down. So Watson treated debt elimination like a priority mission. He kept expenses low. Stayed with roommates longer. Avoided unnecessary upgrades. And every extra dollar he could find went toward crushing his loans faster. Some months he paid $1,000. Other months $1,500. Whenever extra money showed up, debt got hit first. By age 27, Watson had completely eliminated his student loans. Emma? She still had years remaining. And over that period, she paid thousands more in interest that Watson avoided entirely. But here's why this difference becomes massive. Once Watson became debt-free, all those monthly payments didn't disappear. They got redirected. Toward investing. Toward building assets. Toward ownership. For several years, Watson had an additional $1,000 plus every month going into wealth building. Meanwhile, Emma was still sending money to loan balances. That means Watson gained years of extra compound growth. Years Emma never gets back. By age 30, this decision alone created roughly a $40,000 difference between them. And we're only 2 decisions in. Next comes the decision that quietly destroys more financial futures than people realize. Retirement accounts and the expensive mistake of waiting too long. The third decision comes from something that sounds boring when you're young but becomes painfully important later. Retirement accounts. And this is where a huge number of people accidentally damage their financial future without realizing it. When Emma started her first full-time job, HR walked her through all the employee benefits. Health insurance. Vacation days. Retirement plans. And eventually they reached the company's 401k. The company offered a 3% employer match. Meaning if Emma contributed 3% of her salary, the company would contribute another 3%. Free money. But sitting there listening to investment terminology she barely understood, Emma felt overwhelmed. Target funds. Index funds. Contribution percentages. Asset allocations. It all sounded confusing. So she made the decision most people make. I'll figure this out later. Later became next year. Next year became after getting a raise. Then after paying down some bills. Then after life felt less busy. Years passed. By the time Emma finally enrolled at age 28, she had already missed 5 full years. 5 years of contributions. 5 years of employer matching. 5 years of compound growth. Watson sat through the exact same presentation. Same HR department. Same paperwork. Same confusion. He also didn't understand investing. He didn't suddenly become a finance expert overnight. But he realized something important. Doing something imperfectly beats doing nothing perfectly. So he enrolled immediately. He chose to contribute 6% of his paycheck. That unlocked the full 3% employer match. And because he didn't know which investments to choose, he selected a target date retirement fund, exactly what HR recommended for beginners. Was it the absolute best investing strategy available? Probably not. But it got him started. And starting early mattered more than optimization. From age 23 onward, Watson consistently contributed. Every paycheck. Every year. His own contributions kept growing. His employer kept adding money too. Together, roughly 9% of his income continuously flowed into retirement investments. Tax advantages helped. Compound growth helped. Time helped even more. Now here's where things become uncomfortable. Over 7 years, Watson personally contributed around $27,000. His employer added roughly another $13,000 through matching contributions. And after years of market growth, that account had grown to approximately $55,000 by age 30. Emma? Her balance sat at zero for years. No contributions. No employer match. No compounding. Nothing. That creates an immediate gap of about $55,000. But the scary part is that this number massively understates the damage. Because Watson isn't finished. That $55,000 now has decades left to grow. If average market returns continue, that early money alone could potentially become hundreds of thousands of dollars by retirement age. Possibly much more. Emma faces a problem that catches people off guard. You can contribute more money later. You cannot recreate lost time. Time is the one investing asset nobody can purchase back. And that's why delaying retirement investing becomes so expensive. Most people think missing a few years doesn't matter. But compounding turns small delays into huge financial penalties. At age 30, Watson already has money working for him around the clock. Markets open. His investments grow. Dividends reinvest. Employer contributions continue. His assets are building wealth while he sleeps. Emma is only beginning. And starting later means working harder just to catch momentum. At this point, the gap between them keeps widening. Not because Watson earns more. Not because he's smarter. Because he simply started earlier. Now let's move into another decision people rarely think about. What happens when unexpected money shows up in your life, and whether you build wealth with it or accidentally waste it. Decision number 4 is about something most people completely underestimate. Unexpected money. Because during your 20s, money shows up in ways you don't plan for. Tax refunds. Work bonuses. Birthday cash. Holiday gifts. Selling old stuff online. Side hustle payouts. Maybe even a small inheritance. Individually, these amounts often seem too small to matter. But over an entire decade, they become significant. And what you do with these moments quietly reveals whether you're building wealth or building consumption habits. Emma treated windfalls like rewards. Whenever extra money landed in her account, her brain immediately categorized it as money that didn't count. A $2,000 tax refund? Vacation. A surprise bonus from work? Time for electronics upgrades. Birthday money? Shopping. Extra cash from selling old furniture? Weekend spending. Because the money felt unexpected, spending it felt harmless. Over the course of her 20s, Emma probably received somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 in random extra money. And nearly all of it disappeared. Not because she was reckless. Because spending unexpected money feels emotionally easier than spending earned income. Years later, most of those purchases are impossible to remember. Watson had a different system. Every time unexpected money appeared, he followed one simple rule. Most of it never became spending money. At least 75% automatically moved toward wealth building. Tax refund? Most goes into investments. Work bonus? Large portion goes toward financial goals. Gift money? Added to retirement contributions. Extra income? Directed toward assets. He still allowed himself to enjoy part of it. Because financial discipline doesn't mean eliminating fun. It means creating rules before emotions take over. So if Watson received a $2,000 refund, maybe $500 became enjoyment money. The remaining amount quietly strengthened his future. And because he repeated this over and over for years, those decisions stacked. Small deposits became large balances. Unexpected money became intentional money. By age 30, this habit alone created roughly another $30,000 difference in net worth. Not because Watson earned more windfalls. Because he gave them jobs. Now let's move to decision number 5. And this one might upset people. Cars. Because almost nobody believes transportation choices affect wealth this much. But for most people in their 20s and 30s, vehicles quietly become one of the largest wealth destroyers they own. Emma owned multiple cars during her 20s. At 23, she bought a newer vehicle around $28,000. Her reasoning sounded logical. She wanted reliability. Better features. Something that looked professional. A few years later, after getting raises and feeling more financially comfortable, she upgraded. Then upgraded again. Eventually moving into a larger SUV because maybe someday she'd need more space. Each purchase felt reasonable. Each monthly payment felt manageable. But every car came with costs beyond the sticker price. Monthly financing. Insurance increases. Repairs. Registration. Fuel. Depreciation. And depreciation is brutal. The moment most vehicles leave the dealership, thousands disappear instantly. By the end of her 20s, Emma had spent roughly $60,000 across car payments, insurance costs, maintenance, and ownership expenses. And despite spending all that money, the vehicles sitting in her driveway were worth only a fraction of what she paid. Watson approached cars differently. At 23, he bought one reliable used car. Nothing flashy. Nothing impressive. Just dependable transportation. An older used Honda that cost around $8,000 cash. It wasn't exciting. Friends joked about it. Nobody admired it. But it worked. And most importantly, it was paid for. He drove it year after year. Maintenance costs stayed manageable. Ownership costs stayed low. Instead of constantly upgrading, he optimized reliability. By age 30, Watson had spent around $11,000 total on transportation throughout his 20s. And he still owned an asset worth several $1,000s. Emma spent around $60,000. Watson spent around $11,000. That creates an immediate difference of tens of thousands. But that still isn't the real story. Because remember what Watson did with money he didn't spend. He invested it. While Emma sent hundreds every month toward car payments, Watson redirected that same cash flow into investments. Month after month. Year after year. What looked like a transportation decision eventually became an investing decision. And over 7 years, those monthly savings had time to compound. That means the true financial gap from car decisions wasn't just purchase prices. It was lost investment growth too. Suddenly, driving a less impressive car didn't look cheap. It looked profitable. Now that we've gone through all 5 decisions, let's put the numbers together, because this is where the difference between Emma and Watson becomes almost shocking. Now let's see what happens when we stack all 5 decisions together. Because individually, each choice might not feel life-changing. But wealth rarely comes from one giant decision. It comes from small choices repeated over years. And when those choices compound, the results become massive. Here's what the financial gap between Emma and Watson looks like by age 30. Lifestyle inflation created roughly a $60,000 difference. Debt strategy added another $40,000 gap. Retirement investing created approximately $55,000 more. Handling windfalls differently added around $30,000. Car decisions widened the separation by close to $100,000. Put everything together. That's roughly a $285,000 net worth difference. Same age. Same city. Same salary. Yet one person built assets while the other built expenses. And here's the part that hurts the most. Those gaps don't stay frozen. They keep expanding. Watson's money is already working. His investments generate returns. Those returns create more returns. His assets keep compounding even when he isn't actively doing anything. Emma isn't just behind financially. She's behind mathematically. Because compounding rewards people who start early. If Watson simply continues saving consistently and receives average long-term market returns, crossing millionaire status later in life becomes extremely realistic. Emma faces a tougher path. Even if she suddenly becomes perfect with money starting tomorrow, she has one problem. Watson keeps moving too. She isn't chasing a stationary target. She's chasing someone already building momentum. The decisions made during your 20s don't only affect your 20s. They reshape decades. Now here's where things become even more interesting. Because wealth isn't only about numbers. It changes your options. At 30, Watson has flexibility. He could take a lower-paying job if it improved his quality of life. He could leave a toxic workplace. He could travel for months. He could explore entrepreneurship. He could negotiate more aggressively because losing one paycheck wouldn't destroy him. Financial security creates freedom. And freedom creates options. Emma experiences something different. Despite earning decent money, she feels trapped. She depends heavily on every paycheck. Debt still demands attention. Savings remain limited. Unexpected expenses feel stressful. Career decisions become survival decisions. She stays in situations longer because financially she has fewer choices. This is what quietly struggling financially often looks like. Not poverty. Not obvious failure. Just constant pressure. Constant calculation. Constant stress. And this is why income alone tells you almost nothing. Two people earning the exact same salary can live completely different financial lives. Because wealth isn't determined only by what enters your bank account. It's determined by what stays. Now if you're watching this and realizing you relate more to Emma than Watson, here's the important part. You still have time. But time matters. Every month delayed is another month compounding doesn't work for you. Every year spent stretching your lifestyle higher creates opportunity costs that become expensive later. You don't need perfection. You need action. Start creating space between what you earn and what you spend. Treat debt reduction seriously. Enroll in retirement accounts immediately. Use unexpected money intentionally. Stop upgrading things that don't improve your long-term future. Drive the car that supports your goals, not your ego. None of this sounds exciting. Nobody posts about aggressively investing tax refunds. Nobody gets social media attention for keeping an older car. Nobody celebrates staying below their means. But years later, those boring decisions become freedom. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people hearing this won't change anything. They'll keep increasing spending whenever income rises. Keep delaying investing. Keep financing things they cannot comfortably afford. Keep telling themselves they'll become serious about money later. Then 30 arrives. And suddenly they wonder why financial stress still exists despite decent income. But if you become one of the few people who actually act differently, your future starts separating from everyone around you. Not only financially. Emotionally too. Less stress. More freedom. More choices. More control. Your 20s are valuable because time itself is valuable. And time is constantly disappearing whether you use it intentionally or not. Every dollar you invest today gets more opportunities to grow. Every dollar wasted loses that opportunity forever. You cannot purchase lost compounding later. You cannot rewind financial decisions. And you only get one version of your 20s. So rich or broke at 30 with the same paycheck. For most people, it comes down to a handful of repeated choices. Those choices happen every day. With every paycheck. Every purchase. Every upgrade. Every financial decision. Choose carefully. Because the decisions you make now won't just follow you to 30. They'll follow you for the rest of your life.